evocative scents here. This is one of those videos which I am really excited to make as the topic revolves around one of my favorite fragrance accords, the iris. In some fragrances you might notice it might be interchangeably written as Orris root. Mostly it should mean the same. Technically speaking, iris is the flower name and Orris root or Orris as the name suggests is the root. The smell used in the fragrances is always the Orris root here as the flower doesn't really have a lot of smell. In most of the fragrances available it is synthetically recreated as the real deal is very expensive. Now coming to the smell characteristic, the iris has a very waxy, lipsticky, powdery, little bit of buttery suede like undertone. Now if you have never tried an iris based fragrance, I would highly suggest you to try one. A proper iris fragrance can be a very different beast altogether. Now not everybody will like it, but those who do will absolutely love it as the iris is a multifaceted note and it has got lot of character to it, and if used properly it will give the fragrance a 3D effect like depth. That's how intense and beautiful the iris is. In this video, I will be covering fragrances which are really affordable and also cover some of the best iris fragrances available in the market. I am not covering any niche fragrances in this video, but the fragrances at the end should satisfy cravings of most fragrance enthusiasts. So let's start this video then. If you have a very tight budget and want to get a feel of iris, my first pick would be the Maison Alhambra Dark Door Intense. This perfume is heavily inspired from the Dior Homme Intense. Yes, it does lack the refinement and depth of the DHI, but at this price point you are getting a lot of fragrance to be honest. Especially at the price point this comes in. One thing you have to keep in mind, it is a bit sharp in the opening, so after spraying just let it settle down for first couple of minutes. By the way, all the fragrances I have listed in this video except just one had synthetic iris in it. But the Dark Door Intense has certainly recreated that scent profile quite faithfully. Coming to the scent profile, you are going to get a very aromatic, powdery, slightly waxy and a floral woody smell, and it might sound a bit complex and fancy, but if you have ever tried a DHI you would know that it is very complex and unique in its scent profile. It also has a little bit of earthiness and very light yet noticeable amount of sweetness, and this kind of sweetness is quite different from your regular vanilla based fragrances. I feel that this scent profile is quite unisex in nature. Forget what it is marketed at and see that whether the iris feels appealing to you or not. I mean that for almost all of the fragrances, and this one in my opinion is perfectly unisex, suitable for evening and nights and a very beautiful choice for date nights. This perfume can easily be dressed up. In fact, it's not a very casual scent. In cool weather, when I have tried this fragrance, I easily get about 5 to 6 hours of longevity on clothes, but the projection definitely sits on the closer side of the things. I don't mind average performing fragrances as long as the scent profile appeals to me. But if you're someone who is looking for a loud fragrance, then this might not be the right choice for you. Now let's move on to the next fragrance of this list. It is His Confession from Latafa. Now this scent profile reminds me a lot like the Givenchy Gentleman lineup. It means that you are going to get a lot more sweetness, a touch more woodiness and lot of ambrèe profile. The iris is still prominent, but that aromatic lavender and the vanilla do take the center stage in this one. I have seen a lot of people liking the Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privé. This perfume should feel right at home for them. And if you are finding this slightly over the budget, then I have got another option for you. It is the Zimaya Inicus Luna. Now this is not exactly like the Latafa His Confession. It is lot less spicier and it has got a bit of leathery feel and lot more powdery in nature. Now to some people these two fragrances might come across as little bit plasticky and waxy feel, but trust me, these two smell great in the air. To me, the Inicus Luna performs better than the His Confession, but it is also more sweet and powdery in nature. The His Confession has little bit of spices in the top, so that makes it slightly more different, I would say. The dry down of both of these fragrances are really good, and that hint of plasticky smell fades away after half an hour. Now moving on to next two fragrances on this list, just wanted to let you know I am not a big fan of these two fragrances. I have seen some people gushing over the new DHP, but I simply can't come to love it. But that's purely my personal opinion, so I have included these two fragrances as well. The first one being the Rayhaan Obsidian, which I have have done a full review of, so do check that out where I have covered it in details. But if I have to describe it briefly, it is going to be a very sweet and woody fragrance with light hint of iris. So if you are on the fence about getting an iris fragrance or not, and you think that waxy and powdery smell might not appeal to you, then these two fragrances might be a good choice for you. In my humble opinion, these two fragrances don't do justice to the iris smell, being more of that ambrèe vanillic smell with sprinkle of iris over the top with almost a dry sort of woody dry down. Now that sweet aspect of both of these fragrances go towards that modern vanillic undertone without the depth of the iris, and quite frankly, I find them to be incomplete. Guess what? Sweetness of both of these fragrances resemble a lot like ultra male. Well, that's not a bad thing per se. In my humble opinion, the beauty of the iris is totally lost here. But between these two fragrances, if I have to pick one, I would pick the Arabiyat Prestige Noire. It's touch better than rayhaan Obsidian, slightly more refined and less of that hair like dry down from the Obsidian. But if you already have the Obsidian, don't bother about getting this one. It's going to be redundant. Now let's move on to a fragrance that I would wholeheartedly recommend. Yes, I am talking about the wataniah Kayaan Classic. It is a very popular fragrance, and if you want that beautiful DHI smell without spending a chunk of money, then don't go further than this and just get this one. Now, not everything is perfect with this one because the performance is on the average side. But once you keep aside the performance, the smell is absolutely gorgeous. You are going to get that smooth, buttery, waxy, sweet, earthy iris along with something dark chocolate in here. It is just a fantastic smelling fragrance without a doubt. Now, as I have earlier said in this video, I consider this DNA to be perfectly unisex, and this one falls right into that. Newer DHI have slightly watered down fragrances, and the iris is not as thick and rich as the previous iterations were, and I think this is where the Kayaan Classic really shines, because it has got that similar sort of thick and rich iris accord, and what's even better, it has got that similar sort of dark chocolatey vibe as well. Performance on the other hand is average at best. You can expect about 5 to 6 hours of longevity, maybe slightly more in cooler weather, but that's about it. Now let's move on to something different sort of iris fragrance here. I am talking about the combo of iris and patchouli. If you are a regular viewer, you might remember that I had talked about a fragrance from Ralph Lauren, the Club Elixir, which had an interesting combo, a powdery iris along with a green facet. Now the main problem with that fragrance was its performance. It had a soft projection to begin with, that too with moderate longevity. If you like that DNA and want a better performing fragrance, well, a Middle Eastern fragrance is a great alternative. I am talking about the French Avenue Iris Patchouli. Interestingly, this one is even more complex and has a lot more going in it. You are still going to get that powdery facet of iris. It is not very waxy kind of take here, and it combines it with green accord patchouli. I would say it is a dark take on the iris fragrances because the iris patchouli also has a spicy ambery facet to it as well. Very resinous and deep sweetness unlike some vanilla fragrances, and if you are a big fan of mature dark fragrances, this one is a must try. I know for a Middle Eastern fragrance this price is a bit too high, but you are also getting good performance and good quality as well. At this price point you may also want to consider some designer fragrances, and one you definitely don't want to miss out on is the Lemel Le Parfum from JPG. Jean Paul Gaultier in Lemel series has some banger of fragrances, and personally the Lemel Elixir and the Lemel Le Parfum really stand out from the rest. Just like other fragrances in the Lemel series, this flanker is also very sweet with little bit of spicy opening, just below that a powdery finish, attributing that to iris accord. The aromatic lavender and the vanilla are really popping in this one, with the cardamom in the opening gives it a very slight aromatic spicy facet. The powderiness of this fragrance is a lot different than other fragrances I have discussed in this video, and that is definitely due to the lavender smell here. If you are looking for a designer fragrance at a very good price, then Lemel Le Parfum can be an absolutely great option. A fantastic fragrance for date nights and cool evenings. Now this perfume is touch on the masculine side because it has got that spicy woody facet as well. Quite a good performer, and expect about 6 to 7 hours of longevity out of this one. Now on to the next fragrance here. Now this perfume is purely on this list due to its smell. Cologne that hardly performs if I am telling in a subtle manner, and I barely get about 3 to 4 hours out of this one. A definite close encounter fragrance, and if you are expecting something more, then just don't expect. But But once you keep aside the performance aspect, this one is really fantastic in terms of smell. A beautiful, sweet, nutty fragrance, very seductive and alluring, along with some powdery and waxy character of the iris, and absolutely beautiful fragrance in terms of smell, to be honest. I just wish it had slightly better performance, and I have got to say this one is very underrated. Smell is kind of similar to the DHI, but it also has its own character blended into it. I have done a full review of this fragrance, so do check that out. Now moving on to the next fragrance, and here there is no setback to the performance. In fact, it is a monster or a beast mode fragrance, to be honest. Yes, I am talking about the Givenchy Gentleman Society Ambrèe. I am not going into details as I have covered it already, but in short, it is a very floral fragrance and very different from rest of the fragrances mentioned here. Intensely powdery with heavy florals, some complexity of tobacco and honey and resinous kind of sweetness. A true masterpiece in my opinion. This and the rest of the two fragrances I am going to discuss aren't exactly affordable by any stretch of imagination. So if possible, do try, decant and avoid blind buying it. No matter how good a fragrance may be, it's never possible that every person out there is going to like it. Fragrances, like many other things in the world, are subjective in nature, so give them a try before considering a full bottle. As we move on to the final two fragrances of this list, it would have been insincere in my part if I would not have included the DHI after talking this and that, since this is the true OG. I know that this has changed a lot since the previous formulations. However, unlike the DHP, the core fragrance still has remained similar. It still has that velvety smell drifting in the cool air, a mixture of sophistication, elegance and classy powdery smell with just the right amount of sweetness and woodiness. It's truly a beautiful blend. Now if I have to recommend just one iris fragrance that would appeal to the masses and capture the true beauty of the iris, then this would be it. In terms of performance, this one sits just right on the average side. I get about 6 to 7 hours of longevity and good projection for the first hour. Even though the DHI is an excellent fragrance on its own, it is not the best iris fragrance I have. I reserve that one for the older iterations of DHP. In my humble opinion, this one is the ultimate and pinnacle of iris fragrances. This is an iris fragrance that leans towards that masculine side, brings that rich and thick iris, combining it with dark leathery facet, some woodiness and just a slight hint of sweetness. I don't think that this fragrance was created to be a mass appealing fragrance anyway. Very potent and loud, just one spray, and this is good enough for 24 hours. As I said earlier, it is not a mass appealing fragrance, neither it is a very versatile fragrance as well. A perfume that might appeal to a few people, but I must say this is a true art. Intensely powdery, very waxy, not a ton of sweetness, and an expression of iris that truly feels nice. Now that it has been discontinued, I don't have any viable alternative to this one, and if you want an experience of this, you truly have to get only this one. There is ton of other iris fragrances that I haven't really covered in this video, nor have I reviewed the Dior Homme Intense or the Dior Homme Parfum, at least not on my channel. But if you want one, do let me know in the comment section down below. If you find this video of any value, please hit that like button, and if you love fragrance related content like this, please do consider subscribing to the channel as well. And that's it for today's video. I will meet you all in my next video. Till then, stay safe and as always, stay honest.